Thank you, Professor Gong. Our final speaker is Mr. Michael Myers, who is the Managing Director for Health at the Rockefeller Foundation. Prior to coming to the Rockefeller Foundation, Mr. Myers worked in the U.S. Senate, most notably for Senator Kennedy, on many health issues. And I learned today that his final challenge there was to get the Affordable Care Act passed, which, as you know, he did. So anyways, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we look forward to your comments.
Tom is a smart enough politician that he said to me on the stairs there, I didn't mean to give you all the credit. So that speaks well of him. I'd like to start, if I could, with a brief story that's from Rockefeller Foundation history. At the beginning of the last century, we were tackling the question of hookworm in the American South. So there was medical knowledge available to address the issue, but we discovered very quickly that that alone was not sufficient to convince people, vast numbers of people, communities of people, to act differently and to act in the interest of their own health. So we pulled together medical professionals, educators, sociologists, and many others from other fields to think about, well, how do we address this problem of dealing with hookworm in the American South? And what emerged from that was not just thinking borrowed from a number of different fields, but rather a new way of thinking, a new approach to solving a problem, and what we know of as today, public health. So we were, as a foundation, very instrumental in founding the field of public health and developing that discipline because it brought new solutions. And now we've solved the issue of hookworm in the American South by having a new way of thinking, a new discipline to apply to that problem. What you've heard from the previous two speakers, amazing stuff, and the things that the mayor with Matt is doing here in LA are also leading to what we think is a new field, a new way of thinking, a new way of solving problems that are right on the horizon. And through that, what we see happening is that there will emerge a field that brings together different systems that act separately today. The health system has its own set of knowledge, and we've made amazing advances in health over the last decades. But there's the environmental specialists, there are the biodiversity experts. All of these are separate fields studying separate systems, and it's time for it all to come together, given the challenges that you've heard over the last hour. So what does this mean? We think it will yield new solutions. Think about a number of diseases that we are familiar with and have heard about that are really scary and are affecting people's lives. HIV/AIDS came from chimps, right? So humans and chimps get in contact with each other. That's aided by the fact that as development occurs, as the havens, the sanctuaries, the habitats for chimps are diminished, humans and chimps come in more and more contact. Avian flu, swine flu, again, humans, animals coming into contact. And most recently, Ebola, we think came from bats, transmitted from bats to humans. So this could lead to different solutions to these kinds of challenges. Maybe the answer isn't just the search for a vaccine, but it's also steps that deal with the protection of biodiversity, the protection of forests, in order to keep ourselves healthy in that process. That's the new kind of thinking, the different kind of thinking that we need to deal with the challenges of the future. The meal that we ate today, beautiful, delicious meal, may even be organic, I don't know, is it? But if we came back here in future years, eating that same meal, as we heard from Andy Haynes, the nutritional content of that meal may well be very different than it is today. And that is because of climate change, of rising carbon dioxide levels, rising temperatures. We now know will lower the nutritional content of many foods that we and many other cultures rely on today. So planetary health, bringing together current disciplines to create a new one with richer thinking and new solutions will make a huge difference in human health and human survival going forward into the future. We're so excited about the prospects of this field that we not only were proud to be part of the Lancet Rockefeller Commission to address this subject that Andy Haynes led, but we have invested $200 million over the last few years, over the last 5 years, in some of the underpinnings of what has become to be called planetary health. And with the launch of this report, we have committed an additional $15 million to build out the field, to train the world's first planetary health scientists to help us solve these problems, address these problems in a different way going forward. Let me finish with one thought. A lot of these challenges that we face, these planetary health scientists will come up with new and different solutions. But the challenges we face also require some realignment of incentives in our markets today. So if nutritional content of food is changing, what can we do in markets that will allow us to have a shift so that markets do produce different kinds of food or more nutritious food, or protect the environment so that the food doesn't degrade in the first place? So I leave that with that thought because I know a lot of you are in business and it's something we're wrestling with as well. You know, what can we do using market forces to realign incentives to address, to deal with the challenges of planetary health that are before us? Thank you very much for having us today. Thank you for all that you do so well, and really appreciate it.